Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and a warm welcome to all of you. On behalf of the First Construction Council, I would like to welcome you all to the 10th India Roads Conference 2020 at the 6th India Construction Festival Online 2020. Over the next few hours, we are going to deliberate upon the implementation of highways proposed under the Bharatmala and expressways. May I now invite Ms. Shriyal Sethu Madhavan, Features Editor, Construction World, to take forward the power-packed discussion with our esteemed panelists.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the India Roads Conference panel discussion on implementation of roads and highways proposed under Bharatmala and expressways. I am Shriyal Sethu Madhavan, the Feature Editor of Construction World. And now introducing you to the panelists who have joined me for this discussion. Please welcome Mr. Hardik Agrawal, Director, Dinesh Chandra R. Agrawal Infracon. Mr. Manoj Kumar, Member Projects, National Highways Authority of India, NHAI. Mr. Mohit Mehrotra, Managing Director, Omnicom India. Mr. Ramesh Palagiri, Managing Director and CEO, Virgin India. And Mr. T.R. Rao, Whole-Time Director, PNC Infratech. I would once again like to thank our panelists for joining us today for this discussion on implementations of highways proposed under Bharatmala and expressways. So like we see, the government has already constructed 2,921 kilometers of highways, and a total of 322 projects have been awarded until August 2020, totaling to a length of over 12,400. Despite the pandemic, 60% more length of projects have been awarded during the first half of the fiscal 2020-21, which is, if we compare it during the same period last year, it is much more. If we go to the numbers, the authority has awarded 1,330 kilometers worth 47,289 crore rupees during April-September. Well, with that, we see there's a lot of projects being awarded. There's a lot of projects in the pipeline. The question is the implementation, to ensure smooth implementation and in time. And that straight takes me to Mr. Manoj Kumar. Sir, I know that you are in fact heading the NHAI team for the Bharatmala projects as well. So when it comes to project execution, challenges that have been coming in the way have been land acquisition, environmental clearances, shifting of utilities, financing, among many others. So how has NHAI approached these in its projects awarded this year?
See, good afternoon to all friends who have joined today, this afternoon. This year, it has been challenging in terms of, challenge which each one of us has been facing at institutional level or at the personal level due to this COVID-19 and its, downstream effects of the whole situation. But all our stakeholders, that is contractors, consultants, engineers, the state government authorities, everyone has responded and in a resounding manner, and everyone has rose to the occasion. That's why the figures which you are projecting, the given number of awards, and in terms of construction also, we are not far behind, though we nearly lost 2 to 3 months, and even the impacts are persisting. So we have been able to cover a lot of ground. The land acquisition has been a bigger challenge this year because as you know, the process of acquisition involves revenue authorities at district level, and they have been primarily busy with the relief works or the work relating to COVID. But still, you would be surprised to learn in terms of 3 capital A notification, I am 50% higher than the last year. So the team NHAI and our consultants are not leaving anything to chance. We are moving ahead and taking the challenge. 3D, there was certain shortfall in initial 3 to 4 months, but now we have picked up, and this year in terms of awards, in terms of land acquisition, we are going to set new benchmarks. We'll exceed our previous highest. So things are pretty much on track. In terms, I think the other part of your questions were utilities. Utilities have not been much of the problem because things are largely organized. Our civil contractors only do that part for us, and they do have good teams, so that has not been much of the problem. So by and large, our team has been able to take care of this, and you know, uh, highway sector has been leading from the front in recovery of the economy, and I think each one present here is part of that, and it's their contribution. That's why we are looking at these numbers, which are so encouraging. And this year, in terms of award, we should be close to 5,000 kilometers. And in terms of value, it will translate to 2 lakh crores. So let's see. There's still 6 months to go, and the picture is quite rosy. Yeah, that's it from
5,000 kilometers, 2 lakh crores is big.
Yeah,
and like you mentioned, all the efforts towards land acquisition, we hope to also see that as, the works progress on the projects for the construction companies. From there, I come to Mr. Hardik Agrawal. At this point in time, skilled labor has always been a challenge. But in the current pandemic year, we are seeing a much larger labor crisis as well. So how have you been dealing with this, and how do you manage training unskilled operators with expensive equipment?
So firstly, a very good afternoon to everyone joining in. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate everyone who's working tirelessly. The first responders who are battling the COVID pandemic. They're doing a thankless job. And, in times of crisis, family is supposed to come together and take care of it. It's other family members. So when the lockdown happened, the other, activity was stalled, travel was stalled, and there was an impact of labor migration at that time. As an organization, we collectively ensured that each and every member of our team, of our family who's present at any site, doesn't matter urban or however remote the site is, number one, they are given a very clean, sanitized and healthy lodging and boarding condition. Good housing facilities are made for them. Secondly, we ensured that instead of having a 3 meal a day routine, they used to get 4 times. The meal was made 4 times a day for them. For when the chef in the site kitchen used to make sweets for once a week, they would make it 3 times a week. When we talk about labor, all the labor wants is to know that somebody is taking care of them. We all are, various eminent people are joining in the conversation, and we all know the component of labor versus the component of other materials in our projects. So there was very these very simple things that needed to be done in all these times and all these moments, because of which even the labor who are attuned to working hard day in and day night, even they were very actively looking forward. So when on April 20th the government allowed construction activities to resume, I was very happy to know that almost at all of my various sites, entire labor strength was present and they were willing to go back to work at 8 a.m. And that's why, that's how we dealt as an organization against this labor crisis. And I'm sure that many other organizations must have followed in the same idea. When you talk about, equipment handling and people, operators, skilled operators, of course, there was a little time where there were a shortage of certain skills, but we have a constant routine of cross-training for various skills. So somebody who knows how to handle a soil compactor would also probably know how to handle a pneumatic tire roller. So such cross-training involved would definitely lead to filling up any gap that would come up during the course of a project.
I think cross-training is definitely, a point that could be considered, especially right now when we look at the migration that has happened and there is no, idea when all the laborers will come back and we go back to the numbers we were at earlier. So when we talk about, the challenge of laborers, and I move on from there, we also see that, when we are building so many roads at such speed, we have to ensure quality. So Mr. Rao, I come to you over here. That how is the quality of design or engineering of roads adhered to at present? And, does it flow in a certain norm? So how is it measured when a job is done? Mr. Rao?
Yes, yeah. It's indeed a privilege for me to join the distinguished panelists, and also so many participants are participating in this conference. To all, my warm greetings to everybody. See, Shrial, you had asked for three kind of things. One is at a design stage, then the quality maintenance of quality at the execution, and the third is at the operation and management level. I can say maintenance part of it.
Yes.
See, what is happening at the design stage now? A lot of new technologies are being adopted. For example, in case of a Nagpur to Mumbai expressway, all we know, Samruddhi Mahamarg. See, the authority MSRDC has stipulated a condition saying that the entire designing should be done on building information modeling. So, which provides some kind of a 3D and 4D kind of a thing. So, using the latest Autodesk Navisworks, then Autodesk Revit and the 3D, these are the latest technologies in the designing kind of a thing. So this will not only give some kind of a speed in the design, but also give a real-time monitoring, and also will have some walkthrough models kind of a thing, what kind of a thing we are designing. And later, these designs done on a building information modeling, we can monitor them in a 3D and 4D kind of a environment and on a real-time basis. So that designing part. And second thing, Shrial, see what happens when we, there is a contractual condition saying that we have to engage a design consultant followed by a proof consultant. Then it will be sent to either authority engineer or independent engineer for their review before construction. But what we do in case of a very critical structures like bridges, flyovers and all, on our own, we are referring these designs to IITs, either IIT Kanpur or IIT Roorkee, there. See, to validate this, see, what happens, the quality should be there at even from the design stage, then only it will get translated into execution. So that kind of thing we are taking at a design. One is at a latest design modeling, and the second is the validation by a reputed institution like IITs. Then it comes to execution. Of course, India being a very a lot of labor is available and all, but we are shifting towards the modern technologies and mechanization. See, region, we take a lot of equipment from region. See, now for Nagpur, we have taken that SP 1600. It is a 16-meter wide paver. It will pave the entire width of the one lane, that the 4-laning of this thing, in a single go. And we are doing nearly 1 kilometer of that with using the region SP 1600. And with the automatic dowel bar insertions, and also it's also having a texture finish, so many features, advanced features. Even in case of bituminous, this also use a multiplex kind of a sensor pavers, so that the surface accuracy and all is maintained. And even for the testing, I'll tell you, see what happened now. Initially, the 20 days before, 20 years earlier, we used to do 1,000 cubic meter per day. Even a embankment construction is to be a very great. Now we are doing a 1 lakh cubic meter of earthwork in embankment. So to test those things, again, it's a very monumental kind of a thing to do a conventional testing of things. So what are then? We have imported nuclear density meters. These nuclear density meter will give the density of the embankment in a few seconds. So these technologies we are adopting, so that at a design level as well as the construction, not only us, many of our co-contractors or construction firms are adopting.
Yes, I was just coming to that how are you seeing the overall usage of these technologies and, the awareness about it in the construction?
Yes, its awareness is there. Now awareness is spreading and the penetration is also progressively increasing. And one more thing I want to tell you this thing. See, again, it comes to maintenance of the existing assets. If the asset is built, then you have to maintain. So even for the maintenance also, now like a curb painting, widespreadly we are using the curb painting machines, and also even the micro surfacing to repair the roads. And what will happen in case of any pothole happened during the monsoon period? So we can't do any hot mix kind of a thing. So we are adopting a cold mix technologies. Now the lot of cold mix are coming, very rapid setting kind of a thing. Just you open the bag, put it in that pothole, and it gets set, and the road again is a motorable kind of a thing. So at all three levels, the construction companies are becoming more and more adaptive of these technologies at the design stage, construction stage, and the maintenance stage.
Right. I think that's very well put, and very briefly you put that all together, right from, BIM to technologies and equipment and all the other testing, that quality testing that is also done through IIT, that you do as an option. So it's great to know that the construction companies have started looking at these options. But Mr. Kumar, also to understand from you, are there any third-party checks that are, ensured, that are laid to ensure quality of roads? And what is NHAI's approach to this?
See, the focus on quality of the construction, which is done by the contractors, has, always been there as far as NHAI is concerned or the government is concerned. And we do have, system at two and three levels. First level of checking is done by our consultants, independent engineers, and or the authority engineer, as we call them. But of late, now we have started a second level of testing, which we may also call as third-party testing, though strictly it doesn't fall, wherein we have strengthened our QC cell at headquarters, wherein we identify projects and send a team of 2-3 engineers to projects across the country, and then an intensive quality audit is done. So that exercise we have started. Besides this, we are in discussions with various engineering colleges, across the country, and we are also trying to rope in so that their services are taken in the projects in their respective areas. In addition to that, we are now appointing quality monitors. These are senior retired people or senior professionals in highway who are being sent to important projects to oversee overall quality of the projects, and in terms of finishing of the projects, and to examine a project from users' perspective. So that's also a recent initiative, and based on outcome of it, we'll take that experiment further. In addition to that, this year we have decided, we have engaged KPMG, who will be doing audit of 5% of our projects across the country. So with this, I think we'll be able to put more focus on quality control. But see, ultimately quality is it's the construction agency which is responsible for the quality, and the ultimate quality can only be achieved if they are professional in their approach. And I think slowly that maturity is coming in the industry, and the middle size companies and the larger size companies, they do have their well-defined system. But it's always a challenge in terms of our construction industry, because there are new players which are growing from smaller to the medium size. And that's the transition which is most difficult, wherein systems are not there within the organizations, and then we have to put in a lot of efforts and to bring that. And so my request to my friends from the industry also to have a culture of PMC from their side, wherein they are engaging number of subcontractors. So they should also have project management consultants who from their side, so that they look at the quality and they ensure quality work. So I think it's a partnership of contracting industry and government or NHAI, which can only ultimately result in better roads.
Yes, yes. I think PMC is an aspect that has been, spoken about in recent times a lot, especially when we talk about managing all stakeholders in the projects, like you rightly mentioned.
Yeah.
Also, what you mentioned about the engineers going for site checks. Are these periodically done throughout the life cycle of a project, or how are these planned? And are these like surprise checks for quality checks when your engineers go on site, or how is the whole thing planned?
See, at many times we discuss about surprise checks. See, it's not a raid, and a highway work is not something somebody would do overnight. So I think that anyway should not be in our mindset. They are fairly established contractors, and they are our partners. The way we treat them, this is a team of 2-3 engineers. We notify them in advance, because once a team goes and they are at his project site, there are 4 to 5 days. So logistic arrangements have also to be made, and we have to make sure that all engineers are present during their inspection. They do quality testing, they review the testing records, etc. So it's fairly intensive, and there is good feedback which comes out of these. There are projects where we get very good feedback. There are projects where interventions are required, the corrections required. It's a mixed bag after all. So, and the process is evolving, but the results of this process are encouraging, and we are going to expand this as we go forward.
Okay. So, like we've already discussed about quality checks, and as part of that, Mr. Rao also introduced us to the whole equipment and technology aspect of it. So here, I would like to come to Mr. Palagri, who has joined us on this panel as well. So, Mr. Palagri, before I come to the technology aspect of the discussion, do you think, enough projects have been awarded so far to bring sustainability in the construction equipment sector? Mr. Palagri?
Yes, to unmute.
Yeah, I was on mute.
Yeah.
Good afternoon to all, and it's my pleasure to be on this panel with our esteemed new colleagues. Actually, the last 18 months has been quite challenging for the construction equipment industry. But I would say in the last 2-3 months, we see the revival already. And most of us were operating at less than 50% capacity. But now suddenly the demand is picking up, and we are quite positive. And I think the reason for this is NHAI and the various state authorities, especially in UP, in other states and MP, Maharashtra also, they have aggressively bid for projects. And today I feel most of our customers have enough jobs to execute at least for the next 2.5 to 3 years. I think there are enough jobs available, or there's enough demand for equipment. And I think earlier, a lot of customers were more keen to go for rental or leasing, but now we see more and more purchasing happening. So I would say, yes, there are enough jobs to keep all of us busy, contractors and also the equipment companies for the next couple of years. And I think there's enough pipeline also of projects coming up. Coming to a technology, I think...
yes, because we see that machines play a critical role in, road construction. So if, you could highlight 2 to 3 key technology advancements that contractors should look for in the machinery procured.
No, if you see, there's been a big evolvement in the last 3-4 years with regard to both the consultants, the contractors, and NHAI or even institutes like IRC or CRRI, acceptance to new technologies, and these are already being used. For example, soil stabilization, it's quite popular now. Coal recycling, a lot of companies are using it, and they can see the benefits of that. And now we are also discussing with our customers with regard to introducing new technologies, especially for Bharatmala projects, which offers a grand opportunity to use new technologies by which we can speed up construction and also reduce cost. For example, the DBM today, we do it in 3 layers. 250 mm, because as per the current guidelines, we are allowed to do only 100 mm, the contractors. But typically with the kind of machineries what our customers already own, they can easily do up to 150 to 200 mm in single pass, and this is done globally, in global markets like Germany, for example. So these are things what we can adopt, so that one is the cost of construction will come down, because what you do in 3 passes, you do in 2 passes, it's much faster. So the second technology, what we are also discussing with our customers is inline pave, where it is possible to do the DBM and BC in one go, what we call hot and hot. This is again a technology which is proven in Germany, being used for the last 8-10 years. And some of our customers, we took them to and showed these projects. So these are the technologies what we'll be working with our customers and with the authorities in the government to see how fast we can bring these technologies, because this ensures quality, but also it ensures speed of work and reduction in cost.
From, if we talk about enhancing drivers' performance, but also ensuring safety, Again, if you could just elaborate a little on the role, technology plays in your equipment.
I think the key aspect of all these technologies is the application support, what we can offer. So that end of the day, we can have the best of machines technology, but we need to deliver on the ground. So the application expertise, what we have, and we are trying to impart that to our customers. And the key is the operator. End of the day, the final right quality of the road depends on the paver, but also on the operator. He should be able to see the mix and say whether the mix is right, what settings he needs to do on the machine to get good right quality. So these are the aspects on which we are working on. As far as the safety is concerned, I think all these equipments are adequately equipped for safety, and we do a lot of trainings at site to ensure that safety practices are followed from the equipment point of view.
Right. From there, I go to Mr. Mehrotra. Like Mr. Palagri mentioned that, earlier where the demand used to be for lease and rental, now we also see a lot of purchase and owned equipment and an equipment fleet being developed. So in terms of awareness and adoption of fleet management technologies, how would you rank the Indian market to begin with?
Shreyal and my fellow panelists, thanks for having me here. We are actually joining this panel for the first time. Omnicom, just a little bit about us. We are actually a European telematics firm focused on fleet management, and very specifically within fleet fuel management, because that's a very critical part of the construction equipment performance and optimization. So, we're definitely seeing a lot of engagement in the construction industry. In fact, early on, we took a decision to very specifically focus on construction, and I think that's paying handsome dividends. As far as your questions around awareness, yes, it's still an early phase of utilization of fleet management for all the assets and machinery that are used there. However, what is critically required are specific use cases which will drive that adoption. If I were to look at the global picture, Frost & Sullivan publishes in terms of data, they'll tell you that about the total number of fleet management or assets on fleet management is approximately 30% to 50% of the overall construction fleet. And we're talking of a size of anywhere between 2.5 million assets globally on fleet management, right? Some system or the other. Many of these are OEM, fleet management systems. If you look at India, it's of the total construction equipment market in the world, we are probably doing about 8%, but growing much faster, right, compared to a lot of other domains. And I was looking at the fleet management market as well. India is actually the single largest growing fleet management, telematics fleet management market in the world now, with a CAGR of 17% before COVID. Of course, things may have changed a little bit. But we are seeing that there is large players, and some of them on my panel itself are aware of these technologies. There are specific use cases when we go to them, and one of the ones that we are very, very confident of, and we do it for a living globally, is managing fuel, because all fleet fuel is a huge component of managing. And we want to avoid pilferages. We want to ensure that there is a digital track and trace of the fueling system, so that there's a whole digital audit trail. And the moment we start doing that, the contractors start to see very significant improvement, not only in cost, but improvement in productivity of operators. Because suddenly the operator now thinks that, and of course, bear in mind that when something like this has to happen, the successful operators or the contractors have ensured that the compensation system of the operators is changed, right? So that there is less an incentive to pilfer, more incentive to comply. The moment some of those things start happening, people find savings, people find improvement in productivity, improvement in fleet utilization, and that automatically results in, okay, yes, these kind of things work. So where are we overall? I think overall, our penetration would be less than 20% of the overall construction fleet. But we are moving very fast. As I said, India is the fastest growing telematics fleet management market.
Right. So I was to come to the fuel, optimization point, with fuel management point, which you fairly covered. Also, if you could talk a little about, fuel sensors, that why should fuel sensors be adopted for construction of roads and highways?
Well, again, Shreyal, so actually going back to the same point, the moment you're operating a fleet, fuel becomes 40% of the fleet cost. And our empirical studies tell you that globally, there is a 25% inefficiency in fuel management for various reasons. A badly managed machine, to an unscrupulous operator, to poor maintenance, etc. Right? But 25% is the global average of fuel inefficiency, and Indian figures are not very different, right? So when you have something as big as that, contributing to almost 40% of your overall operating expenses, it's a very big elephant in the room that you have to manage, right? And so therefore, the technologies we adopt are they're aftermarket technologies. So they are very, very precise fuel sensors, capacitive fuel sensors, which are installed in the tanks of the vehicles. They're connected using a GPS device on the vehicle. The data loggers back into the cloud, and our operators are able to, on a mobile phone or on a desktop, are able to get alerts. Every time there is a refueling in the middle of nights, SMSs will go to the operators telling you what's the exact quantity of fueling done. Now, as you know, for example, on sites, most of the vehicles are fueled using Bowsers, right? There is no gas station you go to. And so a lot of it is empirical. I filled 5 vehicles, I brought a Bowser and I filled 5 vehicles, right? And there is tremendous scope for wastages and pilferages often, which is a hard reality, right? So the moment you have these kind of alerts and triggers going to operators, and the overall logging of the actual fueling activity on a digital trail, our operators and contractors and our customers tell us that they're able to sleep better at night because a lot of this system is getting tracked. And this becomes the single biggest entry into the overall lure of fleet management to better manage your projects. Once you have fuel efficiencies taken care, a lot of times we've noticed that people have discovered that there is an idle asset line somewhere which has not been running, right? And one of our contractors, a large one, told us recently that on a site he was able to improve asset utilization by 20% just by knowing how many of those assets get called on a site, but for 15 days nobody switches them on, right? And so those are so fuel is a good way to get into the game and then expand it to do so many other things.
Right. I think that's, just adding to our entire discussion on the technology bit, some more insights of how we can work efficiently with equipment on site. From there, coming back to Mr. Kumar, construction site monitoring and planning is crucial. We've already spoken about, like you mentioned, the various initiatives that NHAI is looking at. Does NHAI also advocate the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, for example, drones, as these offer, real-time data? So is that also something that NHAI is considering? Mr. Kumar, you are on mute. Yes.
Yeah, these technologies are of great use. Whether it's a project planning, whether it's monitoring of the project during construction or during O&M period, and NHAI has been using these now pretty regularly for all our DPRs. All our consultants are using aerial drone or lidar. Besides this, for all ongoing construction projects, especially expressway and greenfield projects, every month it's compulsory to do a drone survey of the project. That gives us the realist what progress has happened, where hindrances are there, where land has not been able, we have not been able to give land, and it brings a lot of transparency in the whole system, whether it's a monitoring of projects or at the later stages a dispute resolution. Because things are clear and every month data is available, and we have now an organized system wherein this data is being stored, and this can be retrieved at any point of time. and this has another dimension in, in land acquisition. We always had issues with regard to payment of properties, structures, etc. Now everything is, now the digital data is there, how many trees were there, or what kind of a house was there for which compensation was to be paid. So technology has great potential and it's being used, and maybe as we go forward, with as the equipments get upgraded, we can definitely have actual real-time monitoring in terms of where a grader is being used and how it has been used and how many passes it has made. So that's next. In fact, we are contemplating mandating of compulsory GPS for all construction equipment on highway projects, and maybe it can come soon, maybe next financial year or so. So that will help us in real-time monitoring. Yeah.
Yes, and I also think earlier what we had spoken about, quality monitoring. So I think that could also be an area where, you reduce the manpower and use technology to do on-site quality monitoring and safety inspection. Mr. Agrawal, coming back to you, considering the pressing need for timely execution of projects, plus the safety norms getting even more stringent, if you could mention one technology adopted by you on site that plays a critical role in completion of highways and expressways.
So, when we bring safety into the question, it's always, there has to be something, a major focus has to be on multi-layered quality checks. So at various levels of the project, from the lower level to the mid-level to the senior level, quality has to be approved before further projects are led on. I'd like to speak about BIM, because BIM is now a very essential tool since the utility shifting in now the new model. It's a part of the project in terms of the concessionaire's direct scope of work, and that's why it's very important to have a very good survey layout of BIM, and to ensure that even during the work there is no damage or any accident that is caused by accidentally damaging a utility, be it a gas pipeline, be it an electrical pipeline. So what we have done is we have created a very robust BIM execution plan by which we have mapped out all the utilities, all the hindrances coming in our path, and we have done clash detection with our proposed right-of-way, with our proposed center line, to see where our actual alignment, where our actual structures would come, and what actually needs to be shifted, where there is need of some sort of a change in alignment. Apart from that, environmental safety is also a major concern that often goes overlooked when we're working in urban areas, like Delhi, NCR, or any other major city. Their environmental safety is a very important concern, because you hear in the news that the environmental authorities sometimes restrict projects for 2 months or 3 months because of the pollution. That's why it's very important for the concessionaires or the contractors to install proper environmental management systems and environmental management softwares, to see that we are minimizing the impact by our own, and maybe one day we can request, we can get to a stage where such stoppage is not required, because for a developer, having a stoppage of work for 2 months to 3 months is a major blow to the entire financial cycle.
Right. So I think BIM is a technology that also, like Mr. Rao mentioned, you also touched upon that. So we would see a lot of more contractors, hopefully going forward, using the BIM technology even more in their projects. Mr. Rao, when we talk about challenges, most of the challenges related to execution is known to us, and there are some challenges that have been there for a while, especially when we talk about finance or acquiring land or environment clearances. But one major challenge during the project life cycle that is faced, one major challenge that you would like to point out to, and your recommended solution to curb the same.
The land will continue to be the major challenge. So having even all kind of lot of discussions are happening last 20 years. The biggest problem in the land acquisition is many of these projects, either NHA or maybe a ministry, they sponsor these projects. They invest huge amount on these projects for land acquisition as well as for execution. But what has happened? Land is essentially the subject of state. See what happens, the land being the state subject, until unless the state government's entire machinery, particularly the district administration, revenue officials, if they don't, they have to support. See, I will tell you one example. In case of land acquisition, state governments, for their own projects like Agra-Lucknow Expressway by the UP government, now the Purvanchal Expressway again by the UP government, even Mumbai-Nagpur Expressway by the Maharashtra government, they're in a better position because they control their staff, because the entire revenue staff is under them. But whereas NHA has to struggle, NHA's PAUs, NHA's regional offices, so land continue to be the very trickish issue. And second thing, what has happened now, recently NHA has taken a policy decision saying that until unless 80 to 90% land is possessed physically, then only they will award. But still, what will happen? There are some pockets of land when during the execution we find out, and there's some structures where valuation differentiations and all, so many things will happen. But one thing I will tell you, see, having said that, sometimes NHA or the MOST, they have to take some commercial call in the acquisition of land, what we feel, because that is very difficult in the government system to take a commercial call or to go for some kind of a out of way going there and acquire some bit of a land or otherwise to pay compensation to a structure. But that what is happening in case of delay of a project, from NHA, there is a double whammy. One is that project is getting delayed, so that contractors or otherwise developers, they'll come back to NHA saying that I got delayed, there is escalation in price, there is a overshoot of the timeline. And NHA is also losing toll on those projects. Because in the case of HAM, in case of EPC, it is NHA. So NHA typically get 5 to 6 lakhs rupees of toll for 10 kilometers. So they're losing that. And whereas that the contractors are coming back to NHA seeking compensation. So NHA has to think some kind of a commercial call they have to take in case of some to clear the bottleneck. So that continue to be the major challenge.
Mr. Kumar, if we could have your comment over here on Mr. Rao's point that, maybe NHAI can take some commercial calls in this regard.
See, with regard to acquisition of land acquisition, we have legacy issues. The size of problem is much more for the older projects than the newer projects. We are dealing with it at two levels. First level is to improve our systems, our own systems. So we have tried to now completely digitize the process of acquisition of land, so that the missing survey numbers are minimized. Earlier in any given projects for land acquisition, when the contractor used to start work, they used to find out that whatever land we have acquired, 20-25% survey numbers are missing. But in last 2 years, as we have started on greenfields and expressways, we have reduced that number to around 5%, and progressively we are bringing it down. So that's the first level, so that the size of problem gets reduced. And now whatever problems are there within that 5%, we are looking at case-to-case basis. For example, if somewhere we find we can't acquire the land, we are even de-scoping that if that's feasible in terms of continuity of the project. If it's that not feasible, even we have delegated power to our field units to negotiate that. But obviously there are issues of rates for which there are certain broader guidelines under which it has to be done. So to summarize this, there has been great improvement in terms of the way we were transacting land 2 years back, and today the size of problem has reduced to great extent. But if I say it's fully resolved, that would be incorrect. We are continuously working on this issue, and state being, land being the state subjects, we are working with the state government. And I think as we go along, as the revenue records are digitized by the states, the problem will further get reduced, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver projects in a much faster manner.
So we hope going forward, we also see, the state governments playing a wider part of their role, and NHAI also being able to, approach this solution in a more effective manner. So now that brings me to my last question to summarize this entire session for us. So of course, we've been discussing about, different technologies, different methods, techniques through which approaches through which we can implement these projects, the kilometers that we've been talking about. So just going to each and every panelist who's joined me today, to keep it very short, one key recommendation that can lead to the successful implementations of highways proposed under Bharatmala and the expressways. Mr. Kumar, I will come to you last for this, but I will start with the rest. So if I can start with Mr. Palagiri, what would be one key recommendation that you would like to put forward? Mr. Palagiri, you need to unmute.
Considering that we have big plans for expressways and we already have the Bharatmala in full swing, I would recommend that if there's a technology like doing the DBM in 2 passes instead of 3, and if that is proven globally, I think the contractor should be given the right to execute that, use the technology to complete the job faster, as long as the quality is assured. So I would say the contractor should be given the freedom to use new technologies which are already proven globally.
Okay, so using new technologies that are globally proven. Mr. Agrawal, what would your recommendation be? Mr. Agrawal, you need to unmute.
A single window clearance and a fixed time disposal of all approvals and processes. And I think this would lead to a very, very fast execution of projects.
Okay. Mr. Mehrotra?
Quick and timely payments of bills for our customers who are your contractors. I think it just makes the whole system move very fast. I was about to talk about implementation of technology. Mr. Manoj himself says that they're looking at adding some monitoring technologies. Sensors are available today, and IoT has come a long way where NHAI can actually, along with contractors, get the benefit of this in real time. So, and I think I'm glad that you're already looking in that direction.
Mr. Rao?
Again, I'd say the land acquisition, that should be the thing. Anyhow, Mr. Manoj Kumar has mentioned they're taking a very wide-ranging measures, but this measure should be expedited. So land acquisition, then the utility shifting, then the decision making. And also I want to add, see, when as a developer, because we work as a contractor, also we work as a developer, investing the project. So divestment of investment is also one requirement for us, because until unless we recycle our equity, we can't bid for the new projects where we have to fund them. And also then we'll be able to deleverage our balance sheets, go for a new debt context. So the divestment, the decision NHAI should approve in a very time-bound manner. So if I want to divest my asset, if I want to sell my asset to a investor, strategic investor, that is another thing. So I would say project beginning is the bankability is the key issue. And at the end of the, once I completed my project, during the operation stage, the divestment is also another key requirement, so that again I can move forward, I free my equity, then I reinvest it, I deleverage my balance sheet, again I'll go for a fresh debt. That's it.
Mr. Manoj Kumar, the closing remark is yours.
Yeah, see, my friends on the panel, they've, I think, highlight very valid issues. Hardik has said clearances, we do appreciate, because unless until we give timely clearance, the projects cannot be executed. So as far as clearances are concerned, I think the team in NHAI's things have changed in last 1 year, and quick decisions are being made. In fact, we have launched a portal also now, wherein if certain issues are pending, the contractors are free to, put in their request, and that's looked at by NHAI management directly, and the issues are resolved. The second point Mr. Rao had raised of divestment, and that's a very valid point. We are working on that, and some relaxation is expected very soon. So they'll be able to divest their, especially HAM projects. There has been demand, and we are working on that. I think solution is in sight for that. With regard to use of technology, yeah, we are ready to adopt new technologies, but my request to my friends from industries, they'll have to take the lead and, show the way in this regard. And we'll we are eager to adopt that. And my message to them is there is no dearth of money, there is no issue of acquisition of land. Do your best in this financial year. Let's achieve maximum road construction. The message from the government to NHAI is ask for the money and it is available. So let's not have any doubt in terms of availability of money, decisions, or the land or any other issues. Let's work together and let it be the best year of highway construction.
Yes.
Thank
so
you. Thank you.
As said, let it be the best year for highway construction. And on that note, I would like to thank all our panelists for joining us today. It's truly been a very insightful discussion, right from design to site inspections, maintaining quality, technology, and a lot of recommendations that have come along. So thank you once again, Mr. Manoj Kumar, Mr. Ramesh Palagiri, Mr. Mohit Mehrotra, Mr. T.R. Rao, and Mr. Hardik Agrawal. So for all our viewers, stay tuned, as coming up next is our panel discussion on financing road projects, challenges and mitigation, followed by the Equipment India Awards. Over to Priya from you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. A big thank you to each and every one of you that were part of our panel. That truly was a very engaging discussion. And for those of you who are using social media, please don't forget to use that hashtag ICF2020.